Chapter 103.13. Yes, I was insulted. We can't just let such an insult go. The words were true, but it all depended on time and place. If knights drew their swords every time they were insulted, they would have been long gone. Bishop looked at Johann with a bewildered look. What were you guys doing instead of stopping this? How could we have intervened? The servants and slaves that the bishop brought with him complained as if they were wronged. There were only dozens of them, and Johann and his warriors had suddenly started the fight without a word. How could they have stopped it? Bishop, please come to your senses. What do you mean, come to my senses? This Biajoni has been in his mind from the start. Now that we've caught those who insulted us, shouldn't you give the order on what to do with them? Upon hearing Johann's words, the bishop thought. However, Johann's face was far from such meanness or trickery. A serious and sincere face. Moreover, the rumors and information he had heard earlier were holding the bishop back. He hadn't thought such a knight would be up to tricks. Johann was right. The situation had already occurred, and he had to step in to handle it. Although it was a bit annoying to say that the knight who caused it should handle it. To think that such an insult would just be overlooked is a misunderstanding. Knight of the Orlan family, I, Biajoni, have no regrets about leaving the bishop's position. The knights held captive looked at the bishop with a look as if to say, there was no one who utilized the position of bishop as well as Bishop Biajoni. He extorted huge donations from the nobles through sermons and evangelism, and also from the merchants through threats and persuasion. This is just what's officially known. Unofficially, there must be more. Accepting bribes, offering suspicious confessions, manipulating trials. He must have made tens of times more than the gold spent to become a bishop. But what does he mean he has no regrets? Your Excellency, what are you? Sure. Be quiet. One of the warriors silenced a knight. Even though they were ridiculed as barbarians, they were useful at times like this. Nobles had their customs, but barbarians from the east didn't care about such things and were ready to take lives. I, Biajoni, fear nothing else if I stand righteous before God. Tell your master. I won't forgive any more insults. The bishop shouted with a dignified voice. It was evident that he wouldn't endure any more threats or insults and would confront them with force. Of course, the knights who knew the bishop's situation were astounded by his response. Are you really insane? Your Excellency. What are you doing? Ah. I told you to be quiet. Show some respect. You barbarians. Be grateful I'm not killing you. Oh. This guy has got a nice ring. He'll pay the ransom separately, don't touch it. What? Relax before I cut off your finger. As the knights were dragged away, the bishop sighed deeply. He started to get a headache. He bluffed in front of the knights for appearances, but in reality, he was burning inside. He wanted to shout to the knights. Now was not the time for the bishop to be doing this. He needed to be more cautious. The church was accusing him of corruption, and other families within the Republic were seizing the opportunity to attack. He wanted a loyal and steadfast mercenary to protect him until this task was finished, not a crazed, wild mercenary. As Biajoni tried to convince himself, he hesitated. About 100 of them were moving separately. Where are they going? I heard there's a manor of that knight nearby. They say they're going to collect protection money for the insult they received. That's not good. Looting is not allowed. It's not looting, it's just collecting what's rightfully ours. Stop them immediately. It's an order. Oh dear. I'm sorry. These rough men don't listen to my orders in such matters. Johann lied smoothly without batting an eye. Aklada and Euclia squinted their eyes and moved forward swiftly. The bishop was frustrated. However, that did not happen. They returned quickly in less than half a day. There was no smoke rising in the distance, no screams, no people running away. Did you gather everything? Yes. Good. Bishop, we can move now. Shall we head to the diocese? The bishop made a decision with a worried expression. In the current situation, entering Beneto was too risky. He thought it was better to wait and see. Instead, the bishop stayed in a town a day's walk from Beneto. It was a fairly large town with a temple and priests, and more importantly, it was a place where the bishop's family had considerable influence. About the mercenaries. I know. I won't let them inside, so don't worry. The village chief was relieved at Johan's words. The presence of hundreds of warriors near the town was naturally frightening. What if they barged in? However, contrary to fears, the warriors led by Johan were well disciplined. Despite their diverse origins and backgrounds, they were all charmed by Johan. Do you eat something special? Johan put a pot on the fire and added cheese, butter, pork fat, and sprinkled some sugar and spices. Aklada and Euclia watched curiously. Suitlignim agreed too, but cooking is a kind of magic. Would you like to try it? No, thank you, Sir Knight. I respect you, but I'll choose my own food. Aklada was disgusted, but Euclia willingly took a bowl and began eating faster, seeming to enjoy it. Have the scouts been sent out? Yes, Sir Knight. Well, find out first, whatever happens. And don't worry. If we want, we can easily escape. Johan was vigilant, preparing for any potential attacks. Of course, he thought the likelihood of an attack was low. Considering the bishop's status and his family's influence, it was risky to mobilize hundreds of soldiers for an attack. It was difficult to justify, and failure would bring severe repercussions. The Republic might engage in battles in its own way. The bishop might be accused. But even if the bishop was accused, it was not a problem for Johan. He was just there to look after his own interests. If only there were more foolish ones. Chapter 103.2.3. Contrary to the bishop's worries, such a big problem did not occur. The other families of the city also did not expect the bishop to act so recklessly. Has Bishop Biajoni gone mad? Doing such a thing in this situation? No, it must be that Hes cornered. Hes really filled with venom. Just to not lose the bishop's position, huh? Really? What are you talking about? My knights have been captured. Not only that, knights of the Orlan family have been captured too. We must go to the bishop right away and protest strongly. Even if we go and protest, will he listen? He has nothing to lose. Shaking in fear of losing the bishop's position might be one thing, but having caused such trouble, it was as if he had declared. Such a person would not release the prisoners and ask for reconciliation. Honestly, it was surprising. That greedy character was prepared to give up the bishop's position. Let's accuse him. In the name of the council. If it goes to trial, it will just become more troublesome. Families belonging to the council coveted Bishop Biajoni's position, but that was only due to the situation. Biajoni's accumulated misdeeds had become so severe that even the religious order could not ignore them. This was separate from the city's trial. The bishop had his own family and gold to spread as bribes. There was no guarantee of winning even if it went to trial. So, should we just leave it alone? Council noble, Gerald, asked incredulously. Gerald, a noble from the Empire, had several knights under his influence through his connections. They had been captured one after another. Anyway, hearing from the religious order, it seems the bishop will lose his position. Why bother him when he will lose his bishop position and step down on his own? What if we initiate a trial and lose? Thinking of losing is why it doesn't work. Let's just leave it be. The ransom isn't that high anyway. The lukewarm response of the other council members infuriated Gerald. When it was time to say, they were so cohesive, but now they acted selfishly. If I don't have my knights, wouldn't you also be in trouble? You're weak mercenaries. Watch your words. Sir Gerald. This is why those from the Empire. There was a fundamental difference between those from the Empire and those from the Catalian Peninsula. Gerald, from the Empire, naturally thought Empire knights and warriors were the best, and his arrogant pride irritated others. No matter how much Gerald fumed, if the others did not move, it was pointless. In the end, the meeting concluded with no significant outcome, deciding to look, Bishop. The faithful are always protected by God. Johan found amusement in teasing the bishop. He delighted in the scowling face of Biajoni every time he spoke piously. Don't speak of things you know nothing about, brother. How about attacking the lands of those who insulted the bishop? They are too ashamed to come forward themselves. Please, calm down. Please. The bishop, alarmed, tried to stop Johan. In the Empire, it was common to gather family soldiers and attack when feeling dishonored. It was an age-old custom, and no one interfered in noble conflicts. However, behaving this way in the Republic would be seen as barbaric. This was not the Empire. It was headache-inducing, but surprisingly, there was no movement from the enemies. For the bishop, it was an unexpected situation. In the Republic, cultured conflicts unfolded like this. First, accusations would arise, then the enemy's hired citizens would spread rumors. Of course, at this point, they had to counter with their own rumors. If things got worse, it would lead to sword fights, attacks, or even assassinations. But now, the opponent was just staying still. Bayajoni couldn't understand. Could they possibly be scared? Bayajoni looked at Johann. Though he had recently achieved a great feat. Bishop, it seems you have a visitor. A procession was approaching from afar. Recognizing the flag, the bishop quickly identified it as Gerald, one of the council members. Lord Bishop. Surely there has been a misunderstanding? It's no misunderstanding. Johann kicked the table beside him. Gerald staggered back in fright. Johann's gaze was like that of a wild beast. It made one's heart race and limbs tremble. Your knights insulted the bishop. And you still claim to believe in God? What are you? How dare you behave like this in front of Sir Gerald? Gerald's guard tried to calm Johann by reaching for his sword. However, Johann preferred a more straightforward approach. Ack! The guard was grabbed by the collar, pulled over, and then held by the head, automatically kneeling down. The guard couldn't move under Johann's terrifying strength. I may be a poor and humble knight, but I know what's right. Make a proper apology and reparation. Otherwise, I cannot release the prisoners. Brother, please, calm down. Seeing Johann destroy any chance of compromise, the bishop despaired. Gerald was astonished. Did this knight not know how corrupt Bishop Bayajoni was? Chapter 104.14. While Gerald hesitated, the bishop somehow managed to soothe and calm Johann down. Just step outside for a moment, brother. But what if that person attacks the bishop? I understand your concern, brother, but who would come as an envoy and attack me? There are more than 100 warriors here. Johann hesitated at those words. The bishop thought Johann hesitated because of worry, but that wasn't the case. From Johann's perspective, who had experienced battles, the bishop's words seemed somewhat amusing. The people here had a narrow way of thinking. It wasn't a matter of high or low status, but rather a lack of imagination. Anyway, it didn't matter much. From Johann's view, it didn't seem like Sir Gerald would attack the bishop. And even if the bishop was captured, it wouldn't be a problem for Johann. To Johann, the bishop had no value as a hostage. Then I shall follow your words. As Johann was about to leave, Gerald urgently signaled a servant. Recognizing the signal, the servant nodded slightly. Sir, I have something to tell you separately. As soon as he stepped outside, Johann nodded to the whispering servant. So, are you saying you will turn to Bayajoni's side? A whom? Not a side, rather, it means no longer being hostile. Your Excellency. Gerald spoke cautiously. The two seemed similar but were different. One meant actively working for Bayajoni, and the other simply meant withdrawing from the fight. Anyway, it was welcome news for the bishop. The opposition had been tightly united, spreading rumors in the city, making it hard to breathe. It's regrettable, but unavoidable. If you've come to know the truth and changed your heart, that's enough for me. I am ashamed too. To be swayed without knowing anything. God will forgive you, I'm sure. The two exchanged formalities. Gerald got straight to the point. Your Excellency. Do you know what Sir Giordano and Sir Buccio are doing? They are writing to the church. They are offering gold to spread bad rumors about you. The bishop was startled. The political landscape within the Republic was so intricately entangled that it was often unclear who was attacking whom. The bishop was no exception. He knew many were eyeing the privileges he held, but he didn't know who was leading this. But these two characters were even bribing the church to slander. How dare! What do they take this Bayajoni for? Yes, Your Excellency. Punish them sternly and, may I take my knights with me? The bishop finally realized Sir Gerald's intent. He hadn't joined the fight but provided enemy information, meaning he was asking to release the captured knights without ransom. Gerald was desperately hiring forces to defend the newly conquered lands on the Ulcana Peninsula. From empire connections to mercenaries. Losing trustworthy knights in such a situation was critical. That's As the bishop made a troubled face, Geralt hoped he wouldn't just take and refuse. Their authority lies with the mercenaries. Then, if you could persuade them. They are too rough and wild. It's impossible. If your excellency could pay the ransom on their behalf. Why should this Bajoni do that? The bishop turned stern. His demeanor cooled significantly as soon as gold was mentioned. Geralt was taken aback. Because my situation isn't so good right now. Then reduce those mercenaries you've hired. The diocese isn't in a good state either. Struggling even to help the poor, where do you think such wealth comes from? Everyone in the city knew he was wealthy, but to say such things. Geralt was boiling with anger. He disliked everything about these Republic folks. They lacked any sense of honor. Understood. Your Excellency. I misspoke. It wasn't surprising that Geralt had come secretly. The servant had informed in advance. It was that they had exchanged intentions without Bajoni knowing. As soon as he arrived, Geralt tried to persuade Johann by talking about what the bishop had done. Initially, Johann intended to ignore it, but changed his mind as Geralt persisted. What would happen if he showed a yielding attitude here? As Johann gradually showed reactions like, Geralt became excited. Finally, he had met someone he could communicate with. It seemed they could understand each other being from the same empire. Those beast men on this peninsula were all. Elated, Geralt revealed more and more. About the bishop's situation, the city's state, those pressuring the bishop. It was a kind of venting. Oh, to treat a bishop like that. These Republic fools know nothing of honor. That's what I'm saying. Johann realized that the bishop's situation was worse than he thought. The religious community was fiercely attacking him for the corruption he had committed, and the rumors in the city were not good. Now, if he loses the bishop position, he would have to retire and live in seclusion. Johann was relieved that he had received it in advance from the bishop. Even if the bishop retired lonely, Johann and his men could leave happily. It's such a shame we get along so well in conversation. Would you consider taking up the sword with me? While talking, Geralt had confirmed who Johann was. He had heard rumors about Marcel's troll slayer. At first, he was skeptical whether it was just a rumor or not, but now that he became the Duke's standard-bearer, he must have had real skills. His identity was certain, and his honor was great, so there was no harm in pulling him in. The warriors he led were also impressive. Chapter 104.2.4. But Johann responded with a sad expression. That seems unlikely. Why is that? You are a man of the Emperor's faction, aren't you? His Grace the Duke would be furious if he heard I was mingling with the Emperor's people. Ah, no. What? I'm not of the Emperor's faction. You're not of the Emperor's faction? Well, among the knights with me, there are a few vassals of His Majesty. They are certainly knights of Cardirian. But that's just because we share the same goal, I'm not of the Emperor's faction. Rather, if the others in the city belong to the Emperor's faction, they are, but I'm not part of that. Geralt began to firmly deny it, driven by his desire to recruit Johann. Johann skillfully inflated that desire. Is that so? I once heard from His Grace the Duke that Sir Geralt was a regrettable knight. He said he would have met you if only you weren't one of the Emperor's men. Is that true? Would I lie? I am the honorable standard-bearer of Bredoux and a knight of His Grace the Duke. And your name was also mentioned by Haramrik Gong. Haramrik Gong too? Yes. Haramrik Gong and I are close friends. Thanks to him being not far, we often keep in touch. Johann's face did not look at all like that of a liar. In addition, Johann's lies were subtle. Lies like the Duke mentioned it once, or the Duke's son said it, seemed plausible. I do not like the rule of Cardirian. He is a tyrant of the south. Moreover, he is a despicable man who does not respect the honor of the nobility. To be considered part of the same force as such a man, I cannot bear it. Rather, I respect His Grace the Duke. Really? Of course. You see. Sir Johann. May I possibly meet His Grace the Duke once? I have always admired the Duke's renowned name. I'm sure Sir is busy with his duties, and when will he travel to Bayern? How about meeting Haramrik Gong? I'm sure he'd be happy to come all the way here to meet you. Geralt was about to cry now. Though he was a noble in the city, he was tossed around because he was an outsider. But such an opportunity had come his way. Moreover, it was more surprising that the Duke's child would come himself. Such a lie was unimaginable. To him, who was a knight of no significance in the empire, the name of the Duke's family exerted absolute power. He has coming? Really? Of course. I will. I will trust you only. Trust only me. Johann nodded his head with a satisfied expression. It was an unexpected harvest. This city noble would become a suitable pawn for Johann, who had no connections. I came originally to plead for the lives of the knights. Sir. Think carefully. What would His Grace the Duke think if you associate with knights of the Emperor's faction? That's right. You are correct. If Orland's family or other families question you, speak firmly. They have insulted the bishop who serves God and committed dishonorable acts as knights. It was a statement that would drive the Orland family or other knightly families crazy. When it was time to beg and plead for help, and now to cut off all ties. However, such thoughts did not reach Gerald, intoxicated by the aura of the Duke. It didn't matter what those southern bumpkins from the peninsula said. I will do so. After Gerald left, Suitlig and Sinerna came out from behind the tent with an astonished expression. As soon as Sinerna came out, she scrutinized Johann from top to bottom. Did you use magic? Regardless of the outcome, Gerald's visit seemed to have given the bishop hope. It's as if one of the enemies had provided information. He became more active and energetic. The irony was that Johann, who knew less about the Republic than the knowledgeable bishop, was assessing the situation more calmly. People tend to be blinded when it's their own affair. The city's rumors were still bad, and the withdrawal of the bishop's position from the church was underway. It meant nothing if this issue was not resolved. It would cost hundreds of times more than the money used to hire Johann and the mercenaries, especially if he were to donate to the city's poor and offer bribes to the order. However, Johann did not say this out loud. He was certain that the bishop wouldn't listen anyway. The bishop would rather hang himself than spend all his wealth. Some people prefer to hold on to what they have and sink with it, rather than throwing everything into a gamble. Now that I think about it, brother, your actions seem to have improved the situation. That's good to hear, Bishop. Brother, you must be accompanied by God's love. Ah, yes. Now Johann was moving with a select few, along with the bishop, to enter Beneto. People like Aclada, Euclia, and Marco were left outside to control others. Johann had chosen only Gerdolf to accompany him. Don't be surprised when we enter the city, brother. Yes. The bishop, aware of his own rumors, admonished Johann earnestly. It would be a problem if Johann wavered upon hearing these rumors. The bishop was now going for negotiations, having learned the name of the enemy. He believed that negotiating with them could resolve everything. That's what Johann thought. Why would the enemy accept such terms when it seemed the bishop was at a disadvantage? Over dozens of vagabonds shouted these accusations. The city's underbelly, composed of such beggars and wanderers, always came out to play a central role in any disturbance. They were the perfect candidates for inciting riots, demonstrations, or threats. The fact that they appeared as soon as the bishop arrived was clearly intentional. Johann was taken aback when suddenly people in the crowd began to recognize him. The rumors were somewhat strange, almost as if they were intentionally boosting Johann's image. Johann smirked upon seeing a familiar face in the crowd. It was Gerald's servant. It seemed Gerald had countered by hiring people. Chapter 105.15. The determination of a person who had been away from real power all their life and then seized an opportunity was astonishing. It's already this serious even before meeting Haramrik. It seemed like they would give away their own heart after meeting Haramrik. The gathered vagabonds and beggars were startled when a strange noise began to sound nearby. They were supposed to do work worth the silver they received, but an interference had occurred. As a fight seemed to escalate with pushing and shoving, Johann stepped in. Gerdolf! Step in and shut those guys up. Yes. But don't draw your sword. Use a whip. Johann quickly stopped Gerdolf as he was about to draw his sword. A whip would be enough. I understand, sir. Gerdolf rode his horse forward and stopped in front of the beggars. The large knight looked menacingly, causing the shouting beggar to flinch. What is this? Ah! A whip came flying down from above. The beggars were taken aback by the unexpected strike. Although they were beggars, they were a group that could become ferocious at any moment. It was risky for even a knight to lash out with a whip like this, especially if they all attacked at once. However, Gerdolf had something he was relying on. The soldiers behind him had simultaneously drawn their weapons. If a fight escalated, it would be them who would die. The beggars, intimidated, backed down. "Be brothers, stop! We can't fight in the city." Of course, the bishop was shocked at this sight. Attacking vagrants in the city would ruin his image. They were about to attack first, bishop. They didn't attack. They have brains too. Didn't they threaten the citizens? The bishop was incredulous. Such an excuse. The bishop was confused. It wasn't likely that Johann had hired people in advance. Why was he so popular? Of course, the rumors about Johann were the kind that would make him popular. Whether in the past or now, a brave and young knight was a people's idol. But those were just rumors that would spread in the vicinity, not in a distant city in the empire. The bishop felt the knight he had enticed was suddenly impressively significant. Of course, his abilities were great, but he thought he was playing in his palm. "Bishop, let's move." "Why yes, let's do that." The bishop's mansion was the epitome of luxury within the city. Even without stepping outside, the mansion's courtyard had cold water flowing through channels, and the windows were filled with colored glass. The servants inside the mansion wore silk clothes and ornaments more expensive than what Johann wore, with some even draped in shimmering satin. Johann was freshly reminded of the bishop's wealth, and that of the Republic. These people really do have a lot of money. Toiling as a serf and squeezing them dry felt pitiful compared to the profits of trade. "We have agreed to meet in 2 days, so rest comfortably. Brother, feel at home here." "Thank you, Bishop." The bishop seemed quite pleased with himself, hoping that Johann would be impressed. So Johann pretended to be moved. "By the way, where are the bishop's wife and children?" "Oh." At Johann's question, the servant looked confused and hesitant, wondering if it was okay to speak. The church didn't explicitly forbid priests from marrying. They could marry if they wished. However, priests who didn't marry generally received more respect, as it was seen as a devotion of their desires and lineage to God. Knowing this, the bishop had officially not married and had lovers throughout the city. The master is such a steadfast man." "I see." "Understood." The servant changed the subject, but Johann had already figured it out. The bishop seemed to have quite a few lovers. And probably a fair number of illegitimate children too, right? "Karamaf. Come here." While waiting, Johann stroked Karamaf and played chess with Gerdolf. It was mostly Johann teaching him, but it served as a pastime. Karamaf, seemingly in a good mood, purred and kept rubbing his head against Johann's leg. "Sir, there is a guest outside looking for you." So, Johann was naturally surprised when a guest came looking for him first. Was it sent by Gerald? There was no one else who would send someone. Surprisingly, it wasn't Gerald who sent for him. The one who called Johann was one of the city nobles he had never seen before. He was a river otter beastman named Pilarachi. It wasn't that surprising. Thanks to Gerald spreading the rumors, even those who didn't know were whispering. It was a favorite pastime of the nobles to meet a brave knight in person, treat them well, and share in their honor. Johann went with Gerdolf. He thought everyone would be happy to see some tricks. However, the reception Johann received was completely different from what he expected. "Welcome. I've been waiting for you. You know why I called you, right?" "I have no idea." "Oh? No. Ah. Sorry about that. I forgot what I was saying. The Elohim family. Now you understand?" "I still don't understand." "Oh dear. I mentioned the Elohim family. Why don't you understand?" "Please, take a seat." Pilarachi was a famous defensive scholar and artist. In this era, numerology, dealing with the mysteries of numbers, was no different from arithmetic or mathematics. Every wizard needed a patron, and Pilarachi was sponsored by the Elohim family. Naturally, he became curious upon hearing about a knight skilled in numbers. As soon as he sat down, Pilarachi started presenting various riddles, and Johann answered them as best he knew. Gerdolf, listening to their conversation, turned pale and staggered. Johann ordered him to go outside and rest. Amazing! Amazing! Chapter 105.2.5 Pilarachi was genuinely amazed by Johann's knowledge. Johann's talent was strangely twisted. In some areas, he solved problems even Pilarachi couldn't solve faster and more easily, but in others, he showed surprising gaps in knowledge. But one thing was clear, this knight was more adept at arithmetic than many young numerologists or university students, sometimes even more than Pilarachi. You learned this from a priest? That's too modest. This isn't something you could learn from a priest at all. I'm amazed at how much you must have self-taught to reach this level. Thank you. The fact that Johann dealt with Eastern numbers, not Empire numbers, meant he had deviated from the teachings of a priest, who mostly used Empire numbers. Pilarachi excitedly noted down what he had learned from Johann. Despite the long conversation, he wasn't tired at all, eager to experiment with his new knowledge. I thought it was a joke when I heard about it from the Allahim family, but am truly delighted. Oh, take this. What is this? It's a necklace containing the power of numerology. It'll be helpful in these dangerous times in the city. Someone like you deserves to have it. The sponsoring Allahim family would have been angry if they knew, but Pilarachi, true to being a wizard, didn't care. Johann felt magical energy from the necklace offered to him. The necklace, made of simplified shapes forming a magic circle, emanated a protective power. Johann gratefully accepted it. Even though they shared the same mathematical knowledge, Pilarachi, who found mysticism in mathematics, and Johann, who had no such beliefs, were different. Such a necklace wouldn't have been made if Johann had drawn it himself. After finishing their conversation, Pilarachi seemed ready to talk about worldly matters. He had a servant bring drinks and looked at Johann with concern. But I heard you're working with Bishop Biagoni, is that okay? You're not being deceived, are you? He's not a bad person, but Heza not exactly a good person either. Pilarachi tried his best to speak positively, but that was his limit. Johann replied with a faint smile. I'm keeping that in mind. That's good to hear. The city is a bit dangerous these days. It's not a good time for outsiders to stay for long. People are hurling insults at the bishop. No, not that. That's always been the case. Insulting someone was a tradition of the city. Before the bishop, they insulted someone else, and they will insult someone else after him. Johann looked uneasy after hearing the explanation. Some lunatic keeps attacking citizens. There are rumors that a demon is roaming around. Johann didn't realize it was true when he heard someone tell the bishop. Suddenly, he became curious. Is there any known information about who the raider is? None. It's so bad that they even came to me for help. All Pilarachi could do was use numerology to locate the opponent, which was difficult in such a crowded city. I think it's a retired mercenary or knight who returned from the east. The raider would flawlessly disappear after cutting off the victim's breath in the middle of the night. The skill to harm not only wanderers breaking curfew but also people inside their homes was not something anyone could do. Maybe it's a mercenary or knight who learned techniques from the east, where many evil assassins reside. What about a monster? A monster could be possible, but wouldn't a monster be much more violent? Too cunning for a monster. Only targeting the victim and then escaping was not the kind of self-control a monster would show. After the conversation, as he saw Johann off, Pilarachi repeatedly admonished him. If you feel something suspicious about the bishop, it wouldn't be bad to back off. Of course, a contract is a matter of faith, but sometimes it's okay to break it. Pilarachi, unaware that Johann was already playing with the bishop, had no choice but to worry. Johann quietly and gratefully accepted the kindness. Send letters often. On the way back with Gerdolf, Johann noticed something strange. The necklace he had tucked into his pocket was vibrating softly. Looking ahead, he saw two people walking towards them from the far end of a narrow alley, and looking back, there were two more coming their way. All four were wearing long coats, covering one side of their bodies. It was easy to guess that they had swords hidden underneath. The servant guiding Johann seemed oblivious to the situation and kept walking. Johann grabbed him by the nape of his neck and stopped him. Why do you do this? Gerdolf. It's an ambush. Be careful. Gerdolf immediately drew his weapon. Since they were in the city, both were only carrying a long sword each. You're quick on the uptake. The person who had been walking towards them from a distance stopped, swept aside his coat, and drew a short sword. It was a weapon bordering on a rapier, narrower and longer than an ordinary short sword. Johann had to admit that the weapons they carried were quite suitable. They were easy to carry and ideal for stabbing in such narrow alleys. Holding a longsword with both hands wouldn't leave room for fancy techniques. Won't you tell me who sent you? Sorry about that. I'll tell you after you're dead. The swordsmen clearly had long training. From their well-developed muscles to their disciplined stance, they were obviously from a swordsmanship guild. Johann, who had briefly hoped to identify the client, clicked his tongue. If a melee broke out, both the servant and Gerdolf could get hurt. Johann lightly tapped the wall beside him. Fortunately, one side was a thick wall made of bricks. There was a space behind it. Johann kicked the stone wall with all his might. The swordsmen, approaching from both front and back, were agape. They couldn't understand what was happening right before their eyes. Suddenly, the wall beside them collapsed, creating a space. Even though they clearly saw Johann kick it, their minds couldn't make the connection. It defied common sense. There's a space now. Gerdolf, go to the side and protect the servant. Yes. Johann picked up a piece of the broken stone and threw it. It sounded like something shot from a catapult. The stunned swordsman who was staring blankly got hit and was flung away. Chapter 106.16. The swordsman who was flung away could not get up, bleeding. It seemed that the swordsmen only began to feel the reality after their comrade had fallen. Like a monster, one of the swordsmen exclaimed in a horrified voice. The Night Dastards had faced several opponents, but this was the first time encountering someone monster-like. Catching trolls or being undefeated in tournaments didn't matter much. Even the most agile knights would fall if struck with a sword in a narrow place, unarmed. There was a reason why Johann accepted the challenge, thinking when he heard the rumors about Johann. But this? It was nothing like the knight they had envisioned. Johann raised his sword upward and took position. It was easier thanks to the open side. He had no intention of being careless. Fighting swordsmen who had learned proper swordsmanship was entirely different from fighting mercenaries. With mercenaries, it was okay to aggressively push with strength, but swordsmen required more caution, especially without a shield or armor. As Johann drew his longsword and took position, the swordsman swallowed hard. Attacking simultaneously in a tight space might work, but in an open area against someone wielding a longsword like that. Don't be scared. Attack at once. However, Johann was the first to move. No matter how bravely the swordsman shouted, their frozen feet wouldn't move. As Johann closed the distance with footwork, the swordsman finally moved. The swordsman was lucky. He didn't try to meet Johann's sword with his lighter one. If he had tried to deflect the sword, he would have died instantly from the impact, like the previous opponents. Instead, he jumped back to create distance, timing his thrust as Johann approached. But that was a mistake. Johann, who seemed to have stopped, twisted his body strangely, closing the distance. It was a special footwork technique, more typical of assassins than knights, designed to make the opponent misjudge the distance. Who? Blood splattered, and the swordsman fell to the side. Having cleared one side, Johann immediately turned to look at the swordsman behind him. Despite their vigilance, the enemies hesitated in an awkward stance. Catch him! As Johann's words fell, Gerdolf lunged out. One guy tripped over another's foot and fell. Then he threw away his weapon and ran. Johann admired the scene. When chased by a beast, there was no need to be faster than the beast, just faster than the person next to you. This damn thing, can't let it go. As the fallen swordsman struggled to draw his dagger, Gerdolf struck his face with a fist. Gerdolf knew well how to bring down a man, beating him brutally enough that even Johann had to intervene. Stop it, Gerdolf. Leave his mouth. We need to listen. Who sent you? Giordano Nim. Giordano. Johann pondered. Giordano was a council member belonging to the anti-bishop faction. It was inevitable. While busy spreading bad rumors about the bishop, here comes a Night Dastard drawing people's attention. It was natural for them to send assassins, as it threatened to ruin their carefully laid plans. Even if you drag me to court, Giordano Nim won't be accused. Probably so. Johann easily agreed. The courts of this world operated systematically. Debates raged fiercely, considering dozens of customary laws, empire laws, city laws, and church laws, along with various evidence and claims. But in such situations, the powerful ones prevailed. A foreign knight with just one witness couldn't expect much from an accusation. Johann didn't even anticipate that. Get rid of him. As soon as he finished speaking, Gerdulf swung his weapon, crushing the swordsman's head. Gerdulf nonchalantly shook off the blood and pushed the swordsman aside. With the commotion, people will come. Better leave before it gets troublesome. Let's go. Chapter 106.26. A raid. Bishop looked shocked. While fights did happen in the city, he hadn't expected a direct raid like this. Are you all right? Yes. Thank you for your concern. God must have helped you. To do such a thing. Despicable people. Brother. Do you see? What kind of deeds my enemies are capable of? Seizing the opportunity, Bishop passionately appealed. He had already been worried due to the rumors. It would have been a disaster if a knight like Johann changed sides. The devil is not somewhere else. It's these people who are the devils. Biajoni, didn't want to say this, but maybe it's time for the brother to step in. I mean, we may have to personally capture those spreading bad rumors about this Biajoni. Are you suggesting we cause a brawl in the city? Sure, that's not what I mean. But if they resist, we may have to swing our swords. Bishop spoke meaningfully and solemnly, but Johann just looked at him incredulously. Is this a joke now? Guarding Bishop and attacking and kidnapping a city council member were entirely different things. It wasn't impossible, but if Johann did it, he would bear all the responsibility. If the bishop betrayed him in such a situation, it would be the end for Johann. If he could escape the city, it would be a relief. If not, it meant the gallows. To speak so solemnly of such a thing. Of course, Johann knew the bishop was treating him like a fool, but it was still outrageous to hear. But isn't fighting within the city against city law? The one who draws the sword first will be blamed. Brother! Don't cling to the laws of this republic. People like us may discuss dozens of laws, but in the end, there's only one law that matters. The one our Lord above made. Bishop was pouring everything he had learned from a lifetime of persuasion and proselytization into convincing Johann. The voice brimmed with experience learned from various persuasions and teachings. Facing that pious and sincere attitude, even those who doubted the bishop might waver, thinking. Religion had that kind of power. However, Johann, who had not been swayed by wizards' words, was not swayed by Bishop's words either. Johann's soul was not fooled by such flattery. Johann realized. Surely, the bishop had also noticed something from the other's attitude. That they would not agree to negotiate. Bishop was on the verge of losing his position, and his reputation in the city was at its worst. If the other party refused to negotiate, the bishop would be left with nothing. The last resort was to threaten with force. It might seem crazy, but those cornered often resort to the unimaginable. It was clear that the bishop wanted to act boldly before the rumors swayed Johann. And this raid seemed like a good opportunity to incite Johann. Bishop. Yes, brother. I refuse. What did you say? My contract was clearly to guard the bishop, not to follow such illegalities. Didn't I tell you? It might seem small, but in the bigger picture, it's about guarding this Biajoni. I do not think so. When Johann cut him off abruptly, the bishop was flustered. He was even more startled because he had seen Johann draw his sword and attack over a few insults last time. Why is the knight who used to rage so wildly now so meek? What's the problem, brother? Did you not risk your life for the insult Biajoni received? That was a fair fight, and this is a cowardly attack, isn't it? It's not an honorable act. The bishop lamented the customs of the Empire people. That damn honor, those damn customs. I've said it many times, but think big. If you do it, I will pay extra gold. Why would I need gold if I am doing what is right in the eyes of God? I don't need it. I will not do it. As Johann remained adamant, the bishop also started to get angry. He couldn't believe Johann was being so obstinate after being offered so much gold. The bishop slammed the table and spoke forcefully. Brother! Think carefully. This is not for me, but for the God we serve. It's about standing up to those who commit vile and dirty acts, those who commit blasphemy, so they no longer defile this city. If you do not heed Biajoni's words, brother, you are committing a great sin before God. Yes, an indelible sin. Well, he'll atone for it later. The bishop was shocked as if he had been hit in the head. The knight before him was certainly not a devout man. A man faithful to his religion could not show such an unemotional response to the bishop's words about sin. he should have been scared or angry.
Brother, are you not afraid of God's judgment in the name of the bishop?
I am afraid of God's judgment, but it's because of my actions, not because of your light words, Bishop. Gossiping Bishop. When Johann mentioned his nickname, the bishop's face turned bright red. Johann continued coldly and rationally. Bishop, I have made an honorable promise with you as a knight and am acting accordingly. The gold I received was enough to escort you, Bishop, but nowhere near enough for attacking a city council member. If you want to attack a council member, pay a fair price. You. The bishop muttered in shock. He thought he had been playing with Johann, but it turned out he was the one being played. His head was in turmoil with humiliation and shock. Will you pay? Shut up. Johann had a hunch without naming a price. To get a knight like Johann involved in such an attack, he would have to offer a fortune. Why you, in this city? Bishop, I am currently guarding you. I hope you do not lose that over a trivial slip of the tongue. The bishop, who was about to threaten Johann, came to his senses and flinched at those words. He was right. What was the point of threatening someone on his side? And it would be better for you not to make clumsy threats. I also have connections in the council. Nonsense. You've only been here for. I may not have been here long, but I have the Bridoux family behind me. That alone brings quite a few people. Indeed. Johann was the equerry of the Duke. It wouldn't have been surprising if people wanting to get close to the Duke had approached Johann. The bishop sat down with a look of despair. Johann looked down at him and said, "Why don't you just retire? If you step down and give up your position, you might save your life. You must have hidden wealth, so use that to live comfortably in a scenic place. What nonsense are you talking about?" Even in his despair, the bishop reacted sensitively to the mention of his power and wealth. He glared at Johann with venomous eyes. At that moment, a loud noise came from outside the mansion. It was the sound of something heavy breaking and shattering. Johann looked at the bishop with a look of disbelief. "Are you seriously trying to threaten me with something so trivial right now?" "Bishop, sir. It would be quicker for me to twist your neck than for the mercenaries to come in from outside." No. The bishop instinctively covered his neck. Johann's calm manner of speaking was utterly chilling. The polite demeanor was gone, replaced by restrained violence and wildness in his eyes and voice. He looked like a lion gazing down at a sheep. After all, if you were going to hire such low-level mercenaries, you would have done it long ago. Hiring mercenaries whose identities haven't been properly verified could end up being a move that backfires, especially for someone like the bishop. Then what was that noise outside? With a loud crash, the door broke open, revealing its true nature. Fierce eyes, claws, and wings. It resembled a dragon, but was clearly different, much smaller and uglier in appearance. It was a gargoyle. Chapter 107.17. Gargoyle. A monster whose entire body is made of stone. Johann recalled a story he had shared with Suetlig in the past. Either the statue, fashioned after the menacing appearance of a monster, had become a monster itself through magical influence, or it was originally a monster capable of disguising itself as a statue, infiltrating the city. The magic circle necklace vibrated as if screaming. It seemed to be shouting that there was an evil presence ahead. That's right. The origin of such a thing wasn't important now. The crucial matter for Johann was how to deal with the gargoyle. Gargoyles, known for their stone bodies, were reputed to be impervious to swords and spears. Only weapons imbued with powerful magic could inflict proper damage. Johann drew his sword. It was the famous sword Twilight, a gift from Duke Bridoux. Although not as renowned as the Seal Retriever, this sword was also a masterpiece. Moreover, silver always inflicted damage on evil beings. A monster in broad daylight. The bishop pointed at the gargoyle incredulously and exclaimed. The sun was still high in the sky. Gargoyles, evil monsters, usually didn't roam around during the day. Your Excellency, please step back. Stirred by Johann's forceful shout, the bishop regained his senses. It wasn't the time to wonder why a gargoyle was wandering around in broad daylight. If there's a monster in front, the first thing to do is to get away. The gargoyle fiercely attacked. Spreading its rigid stone wings, it circled the garden and swooped towards the bishop. Go and call the mercenaries. After giving orders to a servant, Johann kicked and shattered a nearby ornament and threw it. With a loud crash, the ornament flew like a spear. The gargoyle, startled, dodged it. Get inside. Why, yes. The bishop scurried off. There were quite a few servants working in the vast garden. If they got inside, the gargoyle would seek another victim other than the bishop. However, the gargoyle focused solely on the bishop, ignoring the others. Ayag! The bishop screamed and rolled forward as the gargoyle's attack grazed by, blood spurting from his back. The wound was shallow, but the bishop screamed as if dying. Johann realized that the gargoyle was targeting only the bishop. It showed no reaction to others throwing objects and shouting. But the gargoyle wasn't a monster that craved blood and flesh. It wasn't an ordinary creature with flesh, its body was made of stone, and it flowed with magic instead of blood. Jokes about greedy individuals' plump souls being coveted by demons were common. Of course, he didn't take them seriously. Brother! Brother! I'm on it! With these words, Johann charged in and struck the gargoyle's back with twilight. The gargoyle twisted its body sensitively to dodge, but Johann was quicker. The creature's tough outer skin melted away, creating a wound. That attack made the gargoyle even more wary of Johann. It was already apprehensive due to his strong soul and brute strength, and now, armed with a silver sword, it was only natural for the monster to be on alert. The ability to fly was very troublesome. If the opponent decided to flee, there was nothing he could do about it. Fortunately, the gargoyle did not back down, seemingly enticed by Bishop. It flapped around, alternating its gaze between Johann and Bishop. It seemed like a predator trying to somehow avoid the shepherd and bite into the sheep. Sir Knight! We have arrived! Hearing the news, the mercenaries hurried over. They had heard about a monster appearing in the city and had taken out their crossbows and bows. Fire! The crossbow was fired and those skilled with the bow drew their strings. As bolts and arrows fiercely struck the gargoyle's body, it flapped angrily. Does anyone have a silver arrow? Sir Knight, where would we have such wealth? Dash! However, an arrow pierced the gargoyle's rocky thigh. Hidden among dozens of arrows and bolts, the gargoyle didn't notice and got hit directly. It was an arrow shot by Galambos, a ranger from the east. What? How did you shoot that? It's a silver arrow. You had such a thing and still mooched drinks. Asshole guys. You think I made it with my own money? Just shoot the arrows. Galambo shouted in a voice full of regret. It was an arrow he had received from an eastern ranger, made to hunt werewolves, with silver melted and plated on the arrowhead. It wasn't pure silver, but it was effective. It had pierced the hard body of the gargoyle. Well done, Galambos! At Johann's shout, Galambos bowed his head. He had hesitated even while shooting the arrow, but felt relieved seeing the knight's reaction. This knight was certainly not stingy with rewards. From the mercenary's words and his actions, he was definitely trustworthy. Dash! The gargoyle, hit by the arrow, did something unexpected. It opened its mouth wide and shot out a sharp stone. As Johann dodged by tilting his head, the creature extended its tail long and wrapped it around Bishop. Chapter 107.2.7. The gargoyle then tried to fly off with the bishop in its grasp. Normally, it would have ended things right there in a fit of rage. But even a gargoyle wouldn't be stubborn in such a situation. With Johann alone being a nuisance, let alone the others. Ooh! The bishop started rolling on the ground, being dragged along. The gargoyle, unable to fly high due to the silver arrow lodged in its body, stumbled. The arrow was clearly taking effect. Chase it! Johann, wearing only a surcoat over his shirt, started running with the mercenaries. Does anyone have a spear? You get arrested for carrying spears in the city. Hand over anything throwable. At Johann's command, the mercenaries started offering everything from throwing axes to daggers. Johann collected them and hurled them at the gargoyle. With each hit, the gargoyle let out a heavy groan. Galambos was puzzled. The gargoyle was groaning even though the weapons weren't silver? Confused, Galambos advised based on what he knew. Sir Knight! It's hard to cause serious damage without silver or magic. I know. Valkalma! At Johann's call, a malevolent spirit surged, leaving traces on the weapon. The axe changed its trajectory aiming for the gargoyle's wing. The gargoyle turned its head and snapped at the axe with its mouth, clawing at it. It seemed that Johann's attack was its highest priority to block. Sir Knight! It seems that the creature is only paying attention to you, Sir Knight. It doesn't matter. We're just buying time anyway. We must prevent it from escaping with the bishop. You two, call the city guards. Inform them a monster has appeared. Johann, along with the mercenaries, chased the gargoyle, launching attacks to buy time. Each time, the gargoyle stopped to defend itself. The creature was still unable to fly properly, and thanks to that, the bishop was rolling on the ground, screaming. It would have been less painful for it if it had flown higher. A monster, a monster! Citizens, go inside your homes. A gargoyle has appeared. There was inevitable chaos as the gargoyle flapped and ran down the main road. People screamed, and Johann yelled loudly, his powerful voice echoing. People quickly regained their senses and moved aside. The bishop is being taken away. The bishop has been kidnapped by a demon. It wasn't a demon, but Johann had no time to correct them. He changed his pattern of keeping the creature at bay while pursuing it. Some of his attacks were magical, but the gargoyle got increasingly angry as the non-magical ones continued. It seemed extremely vexed at being toyed with by Johann. But Johann was starting to get anxious. The path they were on led to the square. Considering the layout of the square, it was likely that people wouldn't be able to easily escape. Moreover, seeing so many people, the gargoyle might abandon the bishop and target others. Honestly, Johann was surprised the gargoyle was still fixated on the bishop. With a scream, people in the square began to run to the side. Johann gripped his weapon tightly. If the gargoyle attacked elsewhere, he was ready to fight with all his might. You've shown your true colors, you night dastard. Although the rumors were favorable, I never trusted a foreigner like you. How dare you rampage in the city with mercenaries and weapons? A well-dressed man, accompanied by several guards, pointed at Johann from across the square and shouted. Johann looked at him in disbelief. You don't see the gargoyle. Put down your weapons immediately. The guards are nearby. If you move, we will shoot with crossbows. Giordano Nim. Giordano Nim. In front. A monster. So, this night dastard is the monster? I knew it. The audacity of this foreign. Giordano's guard screamed and ran away. Giordano, puzzled, turned his head. Only then did he see the gargoyle flying towards him. The people had been running and screaming not because the mercenaries were causing a disturbance in the square, but because the gargoyle was flying in. The bystanders closed their eyes tightly. With a loud noise, the gargoyle pounced on Giordano. Its stone claws and teeth mashed Giordano's body beyond recognition. While mourning the noble who had come to strut in the square and met an unexpected fate, Johann glared at the creature. While the gargoyle had ignored everyone else, it seemed to have taken a liking to Giordano, enthusiastically swinging its front claws. The creature seemed to regain strength after being drenched in Giordano's blood. There was a newfound vitality in its wing beats. Of course, Johann did not just stand by and watch this. He took a throwing axe and then summoned Valkalma. The single-minded determination to capture the creature taught Johann how to make Valkalma submit more strongly. Johann spoke with a cry rising from deep within his soul. Submit even more, Valkalma. In the name of Yate's son, Johann. Before the power that has toppled knights of the kingdom and the empire, and torn apart the cursed souls of monsters and their flesh. The axe grew hot as if ablaze, and the malevolent spirit screamed in terror and submission. The gargoyle, soaked in blood as before, tried in vain to block the axe. The axe slid through the gargoyle's hand, cutting off one of its wings. Confused, the creature tried to fly but tumbled due to the loss of balance. Seizing the opportunity, Johann charged in ferociously with his sword. Frightened by the charging Johann, the gargoyle hastily grabbed the bishop with its tail. It seemed to be an attempt to kill and regain strength. I can't let go of this, you cursed creature. Both Johann and the gargoyle were surprised. The bishop, who had seemed limp, suddenly woke up as if in a fit. Pretending to be dead in that situation. The bishop, crying out, pulled out a large cross from within and thrust it into the creature's mouth. The body was silver, a valuable object adorned with various treasures. Caught off guard by the sudden insertion of the cross, the gargoyle choked and couldn't close its mouth. The silver cross burned its mouth. That brief moment was enough. Johann had already arrived. He glared at the gargoyle with a demonic face, exuding intense murderous intent. The bishop looked at Johann, trembling. It was honestly hard to tell which of the two was more terrifying. A silver flash, and the gargoyle's head was cleanly severed. It was as if done by a skilled executioner. Johann skewered the gargoyle's head with his silver sword. The onlookers roared with cheers. A young knight had decapitated the demon before their eyes. No one could remain silent upon witnessing this. They repeatedly shouted Johann's name. "Thank you, Bishop! Bishop! You have saved us with a miracle!" People also approached the fallen bishop. In their eyes, it seemed like the bishop had immobilized the demon with the cross. "Praise be to the bishop! Praise be to the bish! Please find a skilled doctor." The bishop murmured with a pale face, "Blooded." Chapter 108.18. However, people did not hear the bishop's desperate muttering. "What did you say?" "Well," someone exclaimed with a sparkling gaze. "He said he prays for our sinful souls." "Bishop! Bishop!" People surrounded the bishop with tears, looking like he was about to die, covered in blood. They steeled themselves to let the bishop go to heaven. "Move aside. Sir Knight, the bishop is about to leave. He doesn't seem fatally wounded, does he?" Johann was puzzled by people's reactions. The bishop had been roughed up, but it wasn't fatal. "Please let us pray for the bishop. Sir Knight, please pray for the bishop, so that his soul may depart peacefully." Ah. The bishop, with his last strength, waved his hand. The crowd around him felt like a flock of crows. Johann was the only one he could trust. "He's still alive. Move aside. We need to take him for treatment." It seems like Hes did. He died as a saint. People secretly hoped that the bishop had died. Not out of malice towards him, but because they were fascinated by the sight of him defeating the devil and collapsing from exhaustion. They wished for the bishop to die a holy and noble death, making this square the origin of that miracle, and that they were present in that sacred moment. Already some were tearing off pieces of the bishop's robe, holding them in their hands, thinking they would become new relics. "Take the bishop. Hey, lead us to a good doctor." Yes. The guards who arrived late nodded under the influence of Johann and the mercenaries. Considering their usual arrogance, they would have stopped everything and taken control. But now, no one dared to speak up. They were subdued. They obeyed Johann like tame sheep, to the point where one might mistake them for Johann's subordinates. Citizens in the square made the sign of the cross and stepped aside, sending sincere thanks to the knight who had slain the devil with a silver sword and saved the people. Upon hearing the news, the magistrate sent his personal physician. Not only that, he personally visited to express his gratitude to the bishop and Johann. It wasn't just a greeting, it was praise. According to the magistrate, the bishop had shown a miracle by binding a demon, and Johann was a knight who swung his sword with the voice of God and beheaded the demon. Johann realized how rumors spread like this. With excessive praise, Johann suspected the magistrate had some guilt. However, Gerald denied it. "Not at all, sir. You are from the Empire, so the Republic is still unfamiliar to you." Feudal lords of the Empire held power in their fiefdoms that even the Emperor could not easily challenge. Even such lords would pay attention to the dissatisfaction and public sentiment of the serfs. Moreover, in the cities, the citizens' right to speak was even stronger. The magistrate could be considered the lord of the city, but the magistrate's election was determined by a vote in the council, and the election of council members was also through voting. Now, the bishop had been lying down for over a week. A week was enough time for a disgraced person to transform into a saint. Given the situation outside, if the magistrate did not respect the bishop, a riot could occur. Outside, rumors are already rampant that the bishop is a saint. At Gerald's words, Johann chuckled. Gerald also burst into laughter, finding the situation absurd. They both knew how greedy the bishop was. That such a bishop was being treated as a saint. The ways of the world were unpredictable. Moreover, it's the same for you, sir. Perhaps even more extreme. You personally beheaded the demon. What would those who saw think? It wasn't a demon, but a gargoyle. To the people, it would have seemed the same. Seeing a monster is not a common occurrence. As Gerald spoke, he glanced at Johann and then spoke. "I always thought you were destined for greatness, sir. I have been on your side since the beginning. Please remember my contribution." "Of course, I am aware. If it weren't for Sir Gerald, whom could I trust in this city?" "Really?" "Ha ha. It's reassuring to hear you say that. Although I haven't mentioned it, I've been actively spreading stories about you. I appreciate that. Although the rumors were somewhat exaggerated, exaggeration was essential in those times. The rumor of Johann catching a troll was exceptionally understated, whereas usual rumors were more inflated. No one criticized the exaggeration of rumors. It was also a form of honor. Haramrig Gong will be arriving soon, and I look forward to your exploits. Is that so? I will serve loyally. Just give me the chance. Geralt left happily as if in a dream. Seeing his demeanor, it was clear he would actively advocate for Johann in the council. The caution of a political backlash seemed to have already vanished. Johann opened the letter sent by Suitg. It was a letter sent by Suitg after hearing the news and waiting outside. The reason for an inspector or judge from the order to come could only be one: the bishop. Ordinarily, this would have been a situation to resign from the position, but now the story changed. From the order's perspective, it was necessary to verify if the bishop truly performed a miracle. A faithful one who showed a miracle could not be wrongly accused and expelled. Chapter 108.2 8. Bishop, please get up. Bishop opened his eyes slightly and looked around. Realizing it was only Johann, Bishop got up. There are many eyes watching. Why did you come? I came to deliver a message. Bishop was already fully recovered. Lying in bed was to shake the city's public opinion even more. Ha! Ha ha ha! Bishop laughed lowly. At that time, he really thought he was going to die, but now he could only laugh about it. God really loves me. Who could have expected such a sudden change in the situation? It's said that when one door closes, another opens, but even just lying here, he could hear the citizens shouting his name outside. He knew without having to go out. There was no one in the city cursing him now. Brother! Oh. Are you calling me brother again? Speak freely. It's not a bad offer for a brother full of ambition. Johann sneered, but Bishop didn't mind. With newfound ease, his mind was working again. In this situation, Johann's cooperation was even more crucial. I won't deny that there was a dispute between us, brother. But wasn't it trivial? We fought together against the demon that attacked the city. To be exact, I fought alone. Look, brother. Wouldn't it be good to have a friendly bishop in the order? Do you want to see this Biajoni lose his bishopric? Surely not, with the friendship we have built. Biajoni appealed to emotion, but Johann didn't bat an eye. Johann spoke coolly. Get to the point, please. With the city's opinion like this, no council member can attack this Biajoni anymore. Even those who were attacking me are now silent and anxious. Even unlucky ones like Giordano. Giordano was killed by the gargoyle. What? Is that true? Divine punishment indeed. Bishop, excited, suddenly coughed to cover his embarrassment. It was awkward to rejoice over a person being killed by a monster, even if they were sworn enemies. Anyway, with the city calmed down, the order is next. They won't easily dismiss this Biajoni now. That's exactly why I came. Someone from the order is coming. Perhaps an inspector or a judge. Bishop was startled. He had thought they would come, but so soon? Is that true? There's no time to waste. We must prepare immediately. So what are you saying? We need to align our stories, brother. Biajoni's plan was simple. It was Johann who had captured the gargoyle. Bishop, who had been captured and dragged from the mansion, knew it well. From start to finish, it was as if Johann had captured it. Bishop's plan was almost a desperate struggle not to be outdone. But saying that wouldn't be very saintly. When the gargoyle tried to tear this Biajoni apart, I blocked it with a cross. Why do you think it backed off? Because of silver? No. Say that at that moment, this Biajoni performed a miracle. Brother, say that I performed a miracle and immobilized the gargoyle. Johann looked at Bishop with an unchanged expression. Before that solid, granite-like face, Bishop suddenly felt anxious and deflated. Brother. Give your answer. Bishop pronounced the sacredness and bound the devil, let's say. The corpse of the gargoyle was immediately burned. Fearing its resurrection, the people of the city poured oil and burned it, then scattered the ashes in the river. Given the situation, it was possible to make such a claim as per the testimony of the person involved. If I concede that much, what do I gain? The order will unconditionally cooperate with anything related to the brother. The things a bishop of the order could do were boundless. He could send a priest to the fiefdom to the liking of the feudal lord, subtly secure the judicial authority of the temple for the lord, or even support in a fight from a justifiable perspective. If one were more daring, it was even possible to blatantly scrape up gold. With the help of someone like Bishop Biagoni, such lies could be told over 100 times. The problem was whether one could trust a greedy person like Bishop Biagoni. Johann might be scary now, but would that still be the case once Hes far away? Johann opened his mouth lightly without much thought. Would you swear in the name of God? If that satisfies you, then I swear upon the honor of this Biagoni. Johann was puzzled. Something was off. No. Not on Biagoni's honor, but swear in the name of God. Brother. One should not swear lightly in the name of God. Biagoni tried to change the subject slyly. Of course, Johann wasn't fooled. It was astonishing that this more corrupt and greedy bishop had a firm belief and fear in God. This was the power of faith. Just as a ruthless mercenary who even kills children deep down fears the existence of God, people of this world could never escape the existence of God. It was the limit of thought and belief. There is power in an oath, and breaking it brings a curse, but that's because one cares about that oath. If one truly doesn't care about that oath, it has no effect whatsoever. Johann could do that. Swear in the name of God. Please spare me that, brother. There might be situations where I unintentionally fail to fulfill it. Even in such situations, one must do their best, that's why you take an oath. Do it. Unless you want me to go outside and tell everyone that the bishop cheated with a silver cross. Johann was adamant. The bishop, trying to persuade multiple times, was exhausted and collapsed. Eventually, he swore in the name of God. All right. Should I say that the bishop performed a miracle with the cross and killed the gargoyle? Yes. No. No. What madness is that? Just say I bound it. The bishop, about to agree thoughtlessly, was startled. Such a lie was unnecessary. It would have only aroused suspicion,